Hi there, my name is Sean van Wyk and I'm the Quality of Life Manager at Livewell Estates. And today I'd like to discuss with you dealing with an individual living with dementia during this pandemic. And I think the first thing we need to unpack is dementia and its different types and the symptoms. So at the moment, currently there are 400 types of dementia, of which Alzheimer's is the most common one. I'm going to discuss a few other of the types of dementia with you, and we're just going to go through a few of the symptoms. So as mentioned before, there are over 400 types of dementia, of which Alzheimer's is the most common. The other ones that are also common but not as common as Alzheimer's, they are Lewy body dementia, frontal lobe dementia, early onset dementia, and vascular dementia. So as I've mentioned, there are quite a lot of types of dementia, and I'd like to unpack a few of them with you and go through the symptoms of each. But first, I'd just like to clear up a misunderstanding about dementia. A lot of people believe that dementia and Alzheimer's are the same thing. And even though it is, it's not exactly the same thing. Dementia is an umbrella term for all the different types of dementia. So Alzheimer's is a form of dementia or type of dementia. Lewy body is a type of dementia. Vascular dementia is a type of dementia, and that is what I needed to do, clear that up before we start with all the different types and their symptoms. So I'd like to start with the most common type of dementia, which is Alzheimer's. Predominantly Alzheimer's affects older people, mostly people over 65, and it's a very slow progressive disease. People start finding it very difficult to form new memories. They find it very difficult to form words or find the words. They become indecisive and they find it difficult to judge distance. The next type of dementia I'd like to discuss is vascular dementia. So vascular dementia is also quite a common type of dementia, although it's not very well known. So people normally refer to Alzheimer's. But it can occur suddenly with someone that's perhaps had a huge stroke, or it can actually develop very slowly after an amount of small little strokes that has happened during the course of the person's life. The symptoms of a vascular dementia is very often the same as Alzheimer's. There's memory loss, there's problem with communication and understanding, there's a change in personality, and the symptoms depends on what type of the brain has been affected by this dementia. The next type I'd like to discuss with you is Lewy body disease. That's also obviously a type of dementia. It affects the individual's movements, and the symptoms mimic that of Parkinson's disease symptoms. And unfortunately, the individuals suffer from severe hallucinations when they have Lewy body disease. The next one is frontotemporal dementia. Some of us refer to it as frontal lobe dementia. And this is where the individual's personality and behavior is changed considerably. The individual really suffers with communicating and speaking and understanding people. It's very often misdiagnosed as Alzheimer's, and it affects younger people, sometimes between the ages of 45 and 65, even though it will and could affect someone older as well. So the last type of dementia that I'd like to discuss with you is early onset dementia. Now, we've seen with Alzheimer's that it predominantly affects individuals from the ages of 65 and older, but we've also seen that vascular dementia actually goes from 45 to 65. Now, early onset dementia could affect people as early as 40 years of age, but there is a very strong genetic link to it, which brings me to familial Alzheimer's disease. A lot of people that have loved ones living with dementia are quite often scared that they would also be at risk. Now, there needs to be a very, very, very strong genetic link for this to happen. and familial Alzheimer's disease only accounts for between 2 to 3% of Alzheimer's cases. So now that we've discussed all the different types of dementia, how does one care for someone living with dementia during this pandemic? Well, this will depend on the stage of dementia the individual is at. And this will be the deciding factor as to how much information you want to share with this person about the pandemic. It's very important not to overwhelm them with information. Some of the individuals that are at a later stage of dementia might not understand the pandemic at all, and it wouldn't be something that would resonate with them at all. So someone living with dementia does not take well to change. In fact, it really makes them anxious. So they want a routine. They need a routine. And when they come to a certain stage of dementia, they are not able to look after themselves the way they used to be. So they are dependent on us, on the care provider. So we actually become the proxy to their hygiene routine. We need to make sure that they wash their hands, that they are sanitizing everything that they need to sanitize, and that they are practicing good social distancing. In addition to that, it really is sad, I know, but to limit visitations because we do not want them to be exposed to the virus at all. Unfortunately, we know that the elderly population is mostly at risk to contract the COVID-19 virus. But I'd like to reiterate that someone living with dementia, the actual disease, does not make them a higher risk, but rather their age or underlying medical conditions, or if someone living with dementia is on their own or living on their own, they might not practice safe social distancing or good hygiene routines. So how do we keep an individual busy during this pandemic where we're not really able to take them out? We need to isolate them to keep them safe and to alleviate the risk of them contracting the virus. Well, there's quite a lot of things that a person can do. One of the most, I suppose, childlike things I can suggest is coloring, painting, drawing. It really keeps their mind busy. It's therapeutic and it makes them forget about anything around them, and that really alleviates anxiety and stress for them. So another thing that's actually quite helpful is asking them to do some packing or sorting of something in the house, maybe just sorting socks, sorting towels, anything that would be able to keep them busy. It usually is a therapeutic event anyway, because if you perhaps ask them to sort all the yellow colors together and all the red colors together, it keeps their minds busy and at ease. One of the other things that we do is, it's called armchair travel, and it's actually exactly really what the word says. We place them in an armchair and we put a program on the television that's perhaps about a certain country, the scenes, the historic places, the different type of people that live there, and it takes them away on a journey. It makes them travel even though they're sitting right where they are. This also keeps them busy and it proves to be very therapeutic. A lot of the activities that we think are the best is repetitive activities. I mentioned before that people living with dementia do like a routine. So something repetitive is perhaps something that would also keep them busy and it will be therapeutic. Music is absolutely the best therapy, I think, for anybody living with dementia and anybody else that does anything. Music has always been the best therapy for people. And I think the main event of an activity is reminiscence. Take them back to when they were younger. You'd be surprised as what they remember. Take them through old photo albums, or maybe discuss with them old memories that they shared with you, or a smell or a taste or something that they touched that they perhaps had before. Reminiscence proves to be one of the best therapies out there for people living with dementia. And whatever it is, it doesn't need to be perfect. It really doesn't need to be a perfect drawing or a perfect sorting or a perfect musical playlist. It just needs to keep them busy on a therapeutic way so that they do not have any stress or any anxiety. Finally, I'd like to speak to you about the care provider, the caregiver, the person that is the one that's looking after the individual living with dementia. We often forget about these individuals. We concentrate on the disease and the person living with dementia, but we often forget about the people behind them. And this is something that's very close to my heart as well, is looking after the people that care for people living with dementia. Caring for someone that's living with dementia is a very challenging task, and we know this, and it's very, very important to look after yourself as well. The story goes, often you've heard this before, that you have to put on your oxygen mask first before helping anybody else. We often try to soften the anxiety and the pain for others, but we forget that we also need someone to be able to look after us when we are also anxious or depressed. And talking about depression, it does come with the territory when you are looking after someone that's living with dementia, because you do get compassion fatigue. It happens and it's nothing to feel guilty about. And you need to look out for the signs of depression, especially in this context of looking after someone that's living with dementia. So, firstly, you might find it difficult to concentrate during the course of the day, and you might get irritated with the person living with dementia that you're caring for. Don't feel guilty that you are getting irritated. It's possibly because you have compassion fatigue. It's important to also understand that you are sometimes going to feel like that, and you are sometimes going to be irritated. And I suppose the best thing is just not to take it out on the person living with dementia, but rather looking after yourself so that it doesn't become such a big issue for you. Another thing is when you really, really wish the day away, it's something to look out for, because if you wish the day away, it could also be a sign of depression. Another thing is not really remaining in the moment with the person that's living with dementia. When you're doing activities or just spending time with them, you're not really in the moment with them, which is important because this is also a sign that you may be feeling depressed. So, how do you look after yourself? Well, I think there's quite a lot of movies and a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of people that give a lot of advice in looking after yourself. So I think it's a cliche, but it's really the truth. The first thing is, as much as the person that's living with dementia needs a routine, you also need a routine. This will keep you grounded. You need to stay physically active, and it's actually quite a nice thing to do, is to take your loved one living with dementia just maybe for a walk around the garden, and also keeping active and busy. You need to maintain a healthy sleeping pattern. This is very important for anybody. It is important because otherwise you're going to feel tired most of the time, which just makes the issue a little bit more difficult to handle. And I think one of the important things is to focus on the things that you are able to control, because we know that there are things that are just beyond our control and there's nothing that we can do. Rather focus on the things that you are able to control and that are within your means to control. So we at Livewell have quite a few ways of assisting you. We have a Facebook page which you can go on, click on. There's quite a lot of our members there that give each other support and speak to each other about experiences, people that are caring for individuals living with dementia. You are also welcome to join our YouTube channel, which has wellness talks often. So it also discusses a lot about the disease, the behaviors, what to do, and again how to look after yourself. And then of course I need to mention the SADAG website, which is www.sadag.org, which would also be assistance if you need to have to speak to someone when you're feeling a little bit down. Then again, you can also just look us up on www.livewell.care, and then take care of yourself.